Here. Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds, back again. Got Luke Simons, like diamonds. What's up, dude?
I'm here looking forward to a fun chat
Yeah,
about
this
helping
is
protect our waterways.
yes. We had ORCA on. It's been, I don't know, a few weeks now, and fascinating, really fascinating studies they're doing. And we applaud anyone who's helping to fix the issues, not just in Indian River. That's where ORCA in particular is putting the majority of their time and energy right now. But anyone who is helping, Luke lives in St. Pete. I was born in Tampa, lived in Tampa for many years. And Tampa had a massive recovery back in the 70s. And now there's many reports, and if you live in Tampa, you know what I'm talking about, where areas that just even 10, 12, 13 years ago had seagrass, and now it's starting to die off there as well. It's definitely not as bad as Indian River Lagoon, but it's certainly not good, and it should be alarming. So we had ORCA on, and they spend a lot of time because they're doing science-based studies. They're not just guessing, and they're not just pointing fingers. And they talked about the residential canals and how we as humans, we want to blame people. I mean, it's just it's natural. Like, we all want to say, hey, it's this group, or it's this group, and they've done all this, and this is dumping, and this is hurting the pollution. And but in many cases, it might be us. And Luke had something happen to him here recently in his own neighborhood that was incredibly eye-opening. And if you're watching this, you can see here we've got the ORCA maps pulled up, and they document all this stuff. It's it's done by public grants, so they legally have to share all this stuff that they're finding, and they're wide open in terms of an open book. And you could see all the different projects that they're working on. And this is, if you're listening, this is color coordinated. And in two of these trees, one is for nitrogen and one is toxicity, and the other one is phosphorus. I mean, it's very clear that everywhere there are residential houses and or canals, those tend to be some of the hot spots. So we're going to talk a little bit about just, storm drains and runoff and all that. And so, Luke, talk about what you saw in your own neighborhood. And you kind of went on a little and you put on your investigatory journalist hat and talk about what you found.
Yeah, I mean, what I found is it was just an eye-opening example of how just we have a lot of control, as really anybody who lives within really a couple miles of the waterways has a lot of impact on the waterways, and the closer you get, the more of an impact it has. So I'm living on a canal system, and so both sides of the street have water behind it, and that empties out into a saltwater estuary. And I was walking Otis, it was just last week, walking Otis, and I can smell some like chemicals, and there was some runoff on the side of the street, in that little gutter that going along the side of the street, which was then going into the actual drainage system. And I, on the edge of the property that I'm on, it has a pipe from that drainage system out into the canal. And so I kept walking Otis, and I see these guys that were cleaning a driveway, and they were, they had what looked like a pressure, one of those pressure water pressure machines, but it wasn't really like, they weren't really hitting very hard. It wasn't like a high pressurized system, and it was really chemical based. And so it was leaving like a white foam, and it was just a lot of water. So it was just pouring it on the driveway. All that water, of course, pushed it off the driveway into the road, which went into the gutter, into the drain, and eventually led to the waterway. And so I was just like, just curious on what it was using. It smelled like bleach, but he said it was chlorine, a mix of chlorine and a few other chemicals. I didn't really know what they were, and I still don't know exactly what harm it does. But he seemed a little bit surprised when I mentioned, like, hey, like, this chemicals, it smells pretty bad, and it's literally going in the canal. Like, does that harm the waterways? And he was like, well, it's not really going in the canal. I don't make it quite as potent in the backyard as I do in the front of the yard. And that's what I was like, dude, like, I'm literally watching it go down into the drain, and those drains lead right into the canals. And I don't think he understood that. And him being a guy who does this for a living, the fact that he doesn't understand that, I'm sure most homeowners don't understand that either. When you are washing your boat or your car or pouring chemicals on your driveway to clean things, just know that when, like, the next rain that comes, it's going to basically take a lot of those chemicals and go into the storm drains, which in most cases will lead to the nearest waterway, meaning in my case, the bay, or a local lake. I did a science project in high school. We had a similar situation where one of those drainage pipes were right at the edge of our property line. And I built a little contraption to catch everything that came out of it. And it was shocking how much stuff came out. We were in a neighborhood that had a lot of oak trees, so obviously a ton of leaves. Got a bunch of tennis balls and soccer balls and stuff, or like baseballs that fell into the drain. But the amount of chemicals in there was horrific because the leaves were basically getting built up, and just having to scoop through that, you can see just like the gas, the gas little layers on the surface. It just looked horrible, and I really just don't think that enough people realize that those storm drains, they don't go to like a plant that purifies everything. They literally will just drain into the local waterways, many of which goes to our saltwater estuaries. So I literally just saw those chemicals going in. Then when I got home after the dog walk, I went out to the backyard and just to see if what was coming out of the drain. And sure enough, I could see that white sludge going out of the drain, which was the exact same white stuff that they were spraying on the driveway. It's just sad to see. And so I was just, again, just kind of curious to see what it was. And he's like, well, I like to fish, so it's not that big of a deal. Plus we do like all these houses around here, and this is what everybody else uses too. And so I was just like, man, that is not good. And sure enough, now that I know what the truck it is, I've actually literally been seeing them in these neighborhoods pretty much every day. So no, and again, it's not just this one group, all right? They're all doing it, but I just don't think that enough homeowners even understand the impact. And if they did, they might elect like this is the cheapest way to clean the driveways. You just pour the chemicals. Doesn't take as long as an actual pressure cleaning without the chemicals. But I think if homeowners actually understood the difference, I assume a majority of them would probably elect to do the little bit more expensive route to not have all this chemicals go out into the driveway or out into the canal system.
Yeah. So from what I've gathered, this chemical, this mixture of chlorine and bleach and a couple other things, I mean, it's literally burning the layer off, right? It'll take any dirt, debris, anything that you normally pressure wash off of concrete. It's literally stripping it. And to Luke's point, I've obviously been in your neighborhood, and a lot of the houses have a slight slope in the driveway, and then they're taking that pressure washer and then washing all this stuff off that goes right in that little gutter that goes right down into the canals. And you know what, I think just because we grew up there, we grew up on a lake in Central Florida that literally, as Luke said, that massive pipe, the outflow was literally on our property line, and there's only two in the whole lake that I know of. And so we got to see all that firsthand. I don't know that I would have even really known that. I think a lot of people just assume, oh yeah, it's going somewhere in some weird tunnel, because it doesn't make sense, right? Like, man, I can't believe that everything that goes down there, including gasoline and oil, if you have a car that's been sitting there for a while and all that oil's dripping and stuff. I mean, all that stuff goes right in. I remember growing up, we could drop a tennis ball in there on purpose and then, run to the other side. And it takes a little while, if there's, from water flow, there doesn't, and then wait for that tennis ball to come out the other end it's really wild. I mean, it's there, it ain't going anywhere, but directly out into the waterways. And this is the same, not just for people who are hiring someone to use chemicals on your driveway, but even washing your cars and washing your boats. It drives me nuts when I see some of these people that are washing their boats with some pretty hard chemicals. And I mean, it's all in the water, right? For people that have a boat on a boat lift, I mean, there's a right and a wrong way to do it. But that's like just directly, especially if you're a boater or a fisherman, like, why would you be putting chemicals literally right into the water? But even the people who are doing it not on purpose, like this one, very, very eye-opening. And the more data we get from groups like ORCA, who are doing these tests in both lagoons and bays and residential canals, it's eye-opening that we're a big part of the problem. And it's not just using chlorine to spray your driveway. There's all kinds of stuff that we're doing, from the fertilizers and things that we put in our grass are really more weed killers. Fertilizers in general, should help grass growth. Same with like septic. A lot of people have said, "Oh, it's these old septic tanks." Well, if you think about it, the stuff that's in the septic tanks actually should enhance growth. I mean, the people have been putting manure on grass and on plants for years. That should help it, but it's these chemicals that we're putting on our grass and on our cars or our boats and on our driveways that I believe, once again, I'm not a scientist, but the data is slowly and but surely backing a lot of this up. That is a big problem to everything that we're experiencing. I don't think we're the smoking gun per se, but I think we're all really responsible for this. As Luke said, the kind of the closer you are to the water, the more everything you do on a day-to-day basis is impacting it. And that doesn't mean that only the houses on the actual canal or the water are even contributing. The houses across the street, it even two down could still be contributing, right? Luke, in our
Right.
neighborhood.
Or more than that. Yeah, our neighborhood had it was probably like 5 or 6 streets
Yep.
of going away from the lake. All of those homes drained into that same lake.
Yep.
So even if you're within a couple miles, but even again, everything will just flow downhill, and the Gulf of Mexico or Atlantic is basically the end of the hill for all Floridians.
Yep.
So at some point, unless it's a closed lake system, at some point it's going to end up in our saltwater estuaries. And Joe mentioned the fact that like the Tampa seagrass, it has, you mentioned 10-year time span. It's really gone downhill and much quicker than 10 years. I've been in St. Pete for just 2. I was in Tampa 4 before that. And in that short time frame, it's been just shocking to see how quickly the grass has been dying off. It's just really sad. And again, I think a big part of it was just, I think a lot of people just don't really understand that anything being poured on the driveway is pretty much going to end up in the canal. Like that guy in particular, he mentioned, oh yeah, we don't put this stuff on seawalls anymore because it was going straight in the water, like in the canal. And I was like, no, like what you're doing now is going straight in the canal too. And just the fact that it's the front yard doesn't mean it's not going to go in the canal. And
And
it was
and he told
good.
you that they go more heavy on the chemicals on the front yard, right?
Yeah.
Which
And
is
in reality,
irony.
the front yard has a much easier path to get in the canal than the backyard that would, from a patio, would have to go through a bunch of grass, assuming that this grass backyard. Whereas when it has all cement to travel down, it's going to go straight in there, no problem at all. So anyhow, again, it's not that this is the only group doing it. I'm sure there's a ton. That the biggest reason for this is just to inform people that, hey, like what you're putting either your front yard or your backyard, even if you're not on the waterway, is going to end up in some waterway. So just make sure to be mindful of what chemicals are being used, and use as few as possible. Like for me, cleaning the boat, like the Maverick, I literally went probably 3 or 4 years without using any chemicals at all. I would just use water, just normal hose water with a scrub brush. And then I would just, do some spots on if I did have some issues. And then maybe like once a year or two, I'll do like a deep clean, and the thing looks brand new. Like you definitely do not have to use heavy chemicals on every single trip. Even going to some local marinas, it's just really sad to smell, like literally smell bleach. I mean, a lot of people just kind of take the lazy route. I'll go ahead and say it, the lazy route to try to clean up a spot and literally put bleach on it, and that'll of course will end up right in the waterways as well, which clearly would not bode well for our seagrass.
Yeah, I mean, just get a little aquarium, put a few fish in there, maybe a little grass, and put some bleach in it. You don't even need much, and all of a sudden, everything in there will start dying. I mean, these chemicals. A lot of people say, "Oh, they're super diluted," and that really shouldn't impact it. It does. Even cleaning your car. I know you were talking about this earlier. Doing it over grass, because that does absorb. Even if you're not using hard chemicals in your car, which many of you probably shouldn't, but all that stuff, there are little chemicals. If you look at active ingredients, even some of the stuff you're using to wash your car, I mean, all that stuff, if you're doing a driveway, is going right down to that little gutter, whatever you want to call it, gully, and then usually at some point it's hitting some kind of waterway. And I really do believe most people don't know it. And so I would investigate it yourself. Start at your house and kind of move downhill, right? We know the water is going to go downhill when there is rain, or enough water where it just keeps pushing it, and just follow it, see where it goes, and do some investigating yourself. In the state of Florida, there's a really, really high chance that it is going out into some lake or other body of water where there are fish, there is grass, and there are things that we don't necessarily want dying and having to be flooded with a ton of chemicals. Yes, I forgot about your high school project on that, but
Yeah,
I
it was like
do.
chicken wire. It was like
Yeah, I
chicken
remember
wire,
that.
and the force was so strong. The first time we did it, it actually ripped it off. Like it was chicken wire around this big old pipe, it's just there's just a lot of water that comes through those drains, and it just takes with it whatever goes down the drain. So whether it's oil from the gas, or some chemicals that were just used, or some kids' favorite tennis ball or whatever, it's gonna go right through there.
But you know what ORCA had said, one of the biggest issues right now is this black muck. It's all over the lagoon, and many of these residential canals are right outside of them. And do you remember what we had, Luke, in that little area? It was the nastiest muck you've ever seen in your life. And that's just from years and years of this massive, massive storm drain. And the one that like we could get in it kind of big, and it's pushing out all this water in leaves that are covered in, like, you could see the little, when gasoline hits water. I mean, it was just, that whole area was nasty, and then it would settle. And it was just this like massive area right off the side of our house. Like you did not go over there. Like it was absolutely disgusting. And it was just thick muck. Like you would just sink down to the bottom in it, type of muck. And it was interesting how she was describing the same thing that's happening there in Indian River. And like, it's so thick, like they can't pump it out fast enough. Like they can't get rid of it. And it's like, over time, it just keeps getting like worse and worse. And it's almost like just like a tar. I mean, it is, and it smells horrible too. So, I mean, it's so crazy. All these memories of growing up on that lake, and seeing it's crazy, the irony. And that was all from that one drain that was coming straight from the road. Pretty wild.
Yeah, and also too, I mean, that lake used to be really clear when we moved there. Like going in between Lake Link and Lake Otis, the two main lakes. I mean,
Yep.
you can see the bottom, and you can see it pretty well in like 6-7 feet of water. And just over time, as it got more and more developed, it ended up getting murked up. And again, a big reason is just all that runoff, all that stuff in the runoff. Especially drives me crazy when people are raking leaves or whatever, and just not, instead of bagging it up, they rake it into the road or blow off the driveway into the road. You're literally just throwing it right in the waterways, and it's just not good. So just be mindful of that. Just know that those drains don't go to some facility that cleans it all up. It'll almost always go straight into to a local waterway. And if you don't want to be swimming in it personally, I would recommend not using it, because you'll eventually be swimming in it once you go into the local waterways. And
Yep.
yeah, just it was just sad seeing. It was shocking, I should say, seeing that the sprayer guy didn't really realize where that stuff was going, and knowing that he didn't, the homeowner surely didn't as well. So really more of like a public awareness type thing.
Yep.
And if we're wrong too, let us know. We're definitely not scientists. We just wanted to shed some light on what we think is an important topic, and be happy to get any constructive criticism.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't take a scientist when Luke's walking his dog, sees the stuff that the guy basically said, hey, this saves me 4 hours per driveway, right? So that's their mindset, is instead of pressure washing it the old fashioned way and getting all the stuff off, he literally just pours these chemicals on there, and it cuts his time. I mean, it's a big deal, right? 4 hours versus one. I get it as a business owner. I get that. But if that guy didn't realize that stuff's literally going right in the water, and you were able to investigate it and follow it, so we know where it was going out, like, all right, that's literally my canal. I see where this stuff is dumping out right near my house. And you said, I mean, you've now seen this truck and some other ones all over your neighborhood almost every day. So this is not just like one house doing it. Everyone's like, oh, I want my driveway to look beautiful, white and clean. And you should. But maybe just go the old fashioned way and pressure wash it. Have you talked to any other homeowners? Like, have you mentioned this to anyone that you've seen?
No, not yet. Again, this all just happened, and it really wanted to do a little bit of of research, but so far all that I've seen is that that chlorine and such chemicals are certainly not good for the estuaries. And again, seeing some research too, I never really thought about it, but even recommended for washing vehicles is to do it over grass and not do it on the driveway, knowing that everything's just going to wash off much faster. And at least let the doing over grass or dirt or whatever will just help make sure that nature can do its filtration. And because our all the cement, all that does is just let that water just go from point A to point B a lot quicker without getting cleansed.
Yep. Cool. Well, we love your feedback on this one. We'll put this over at saltstrom.com in the fishing tip section. If you're listening, definitely go over, leave some feedback. If you've seen similar things or know of other chemicals or things that we're doing to kind of screw up this environment, let us know. One of our big things that we're really interested in spending a lot of time behind the scenes, really just trying to figure out where to put our time and money is on the seagrass, right? There's a lot of organizations that do a good job of raising awareness. I think we're past the point of awareness, right? I think we all know there's a massive problem here. And I love ORCA in particular, just because they're actually doing something about it and using like science to study the water. And then they're coming up with real solutions that they're going to present to the state. And so if you guys know of any other good groups, especially ones like ORCA or anything similar that are really going after seagrass. And to me, the answer isn't just planting more seagrass. I mean, if you talk to the guides that are involved with some of that, it's awesome. And yes, we need to be planting more seagrass. But the bad news is in this area in particular, it's dying. I mean, the old seagrass is dying, and anytime they plant new seagrass, it's dying. So there's got to be some type of chemical that is killing this grass. You can't just keep planting new stuff if it continues to die at some point. Like, all right, we're just literally wasting our money here. We got to find out what this problem is. And I don't think it's this guy that's putting the chemicals on driveways, but if that's combining with something else that's just making this basically deathly serum that's going around and killing all the seagrass, that's what we have to stop. And then and only then can you really plant more seagrass and have it thrive, right? I mean, this is a massive, massive, massive problem. And it's not just planting more oysters and more seagrass, more mangroves. All that stuff helps, but at some point you gotta really clean the water and figure out what is poisoning this stuff to the point we can't even keep the new stuff alive. And I don't know the answer. I don't know that anyone does just yet. And there has to be some group that's doing that, right? Hey, let's take some of this seagrass and keep trying different chemicals on it in a lab and see what kills it. I'm hoping we're closer and closer to an answer, because I don't think it's just one thing. I think it is a combination, but there's certainly some type of chemical in this water that is just destroying the seagrass. So if you guys have any recommendations on groups or nonprofits, whatever, to look at teaming up with, let us know. We would love to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's just a lot of it's on us, right? It's on all of us just to help keep our waterways as clean as possible. The interesting thing is, it's a lot of people blame Piney Point for the Tampa Bay issues, and I've been fishing there and over on this side, and Piney Point area actually has much nicer looking grass than on the other side of the bay. So it definitely, it definitely isn't just a point at one direction type thing. There's certainly a lot of variables at play. Not sure what they are, but one thing's for certain is that we just need to be mindful, all of us do, on just what we use in our boats, on our cars, on our houses, on our driveways.
Yep.
Knowing that stuff is going to end up, at least a lot of that stuff is going to end up in our waterways. So make those decisions based on just how environmentally friendly those products are.
Yep. Well, guys, that is it. Hope you enjoyed this one. Hopefully got something out of it. And remember, even if you don't live on the water, even if you're not on the coast or anywhere near the coast, even if you're in Central Florida, like we are, or like I am, Luke's over in St. Pete on the water. There is a good chance whatever is coming off your driveway is going into somebody's water. So just be aware of it and investigate it yourselves. And as I said, please, we'd love to get feedback on this. This is not a sermon or anything. We're not trying to be experts or claiming to be experts. We're curious. It's part of our livelihood. We take it serious, and I want our kids and and grandkids to have the same opportunities we did and have, beautiful water and great places to fish, and it to be enjoyable, not a place that smells bad and they're just having to wade through muck everywhere they go. So let us know if you have any other feedback or ideas, corrections, anything. We're wide open. We're very coachable people. And likable. We will greet you with a hug. So go to saltshore.com in the fishing tips section. You'll see it. And at the bottom is where you can leave a comment. So that is it. Otherwise, I'm sure we'll have many more topics covering all kinds of things with the water issues and seagrass. But know that seagrass will be a big one. And we love any and all feedback on that. Otherwise, we out. Peace. Appreciate you guys.
See ya.